Welcome to another Book Talk with Tracy. If I did things right, this is episode 51, so I mentioned last time that I'm already into past 50 episodes, which is rather bizarre to me. But in any case, it seemed like a really good time to talk a little bit more about my life as a drama teacher, since I've been sharing some of my plays in the last few episodes. And I thought today I would just mention some of the bizarre and crazy things that have happened to me over the years while teaching drama and putting on performances. And I've actually considered writing a book called Drama in the Boondocks because most of my 20 years teaching, I was not in a big city. So, we had to make do with less than perfect conditions sometimes, or theater spaces that were not ideal, and things like that. Some of the technical equipment just wasn't available, things like that. So I think I might do that one day, write a book called Drama in the Boondocks. And part of that I will definitely have to include some anecdotes, which are kind of crazy, things that have happened to me. One of the things I always said to my students was, the show must go on. And boy, we had some times when that we really had to take that to heart. We had people. I had one young man who broke his leg a week or 10 days before the show. And so we just adapted, and he came on with his crutches and his big giant cast on his leg. And I think, we even added a line, mentioned something about, so clumsy or whatever it was, but that was it. We didn't have an understudy for him or anybody who could fill in at that time. So, you know what? You got a broken leg, you go on anyway, right? Probably worse, though, are kids that were sick. So I remember at one time when we were staging Hook's Nemesis, this one here, the Peter Pan play, we had more than one student who, for whatever, I guess there was a flu bug going around, who knows. But in fact, I had kids throwing up backstage into a garbage can and then get out there and do your scene, One girl was, I guess she was fevered, I don't know, so she was laying backstage on a cushion, and her boyfriend, who was playing the lead of Peter Pan, was, wiping her brow or whatever he was doing. But man, it was her cue. She got out there. You'd never know, right? And I thought, wow, you kids are how commendable. They're just really tough and really took it seriously. And, I was really glad for that. So definitely had more than once where that's happened, where I've had kids sick and throwing up backstage. One time I had somebody was sick, or I don't know what happened, and I actually got one of my daughters, who was an adult, just come on. She somehow memorized her few lines like half an hour before, and just improvised the rest of the way through the show, because she was good at that. So we've had that. I've actually had to have kids, I know one time in a play we printed off the script and put it in a book, and this kid, it looked like the kid was always reading a novel. So it's like, okay, that kid, that just became part of their character. So, oh, you're always reading, and meanwhile they're looking at their lines as they're on the stage. So a lot of that kind of thing where we're improvising, the show must go on. It has to. Probably, I can think of two instances, though, that were the very worst. One, the scariest, happened during a performance of Ali and the Magic Lamp. And one of the characters, she was playing the part of Khalil, who was a servant. And she was on stage, and then she and her counterpart were supposed to be hiding behind a plant, And so they were hiding, and then she didn't move, and she was still standing there. And so her counterpart, like, he, really good kid at improvising, he's like, come on, Khalil, what's wrong? Hey, come on. Like, he stayed in character, and but it became evident just, a few seconds in that there was something wrong, like something was wrong. And so I, had my headset on. I said, okay, go to music. So, the music started to play, the lights went down. She actually just dead, like, fell on the stage. She wasn't dead, but just fell, like, totally fainted. And it took, I went backstage. Fortunately, the PE teacher was in the audience, and he figured out something wasn't right. So he came back and said, what's going on? So between the two of us and a couple of other actors, we managed to get her off the stage into a wheelchair. We had a wheelchair backstage as a prop. And she came to, but she was out like a light. And then we called her parents, and they came and picked her up, and they took her to the clinic, and yada yada. Well, it turns out she had an epileptic seizure. And we didn't even know, like, she didn't tell me, but apparently she'd been having some of these things, and just the bright stage lights brought on some kind of, like, epileptic seizure. And in fact, when she was standing there, she was out, but she was still on her feet. And it wasn't until the stage lights went down, thankfully, that she actually fell over. She wasn't hurt, but we did find that out later. And wow, what a scary thing. Like, she was just like, she was dead weight. To get her off that stage was really difficult. Well, what are you going to do? So her understudy, I did have an understudy for her. She went off to the hospital with her parents, and the poor little understudy, she was just a little girl in grade 7, I think, or something. But it's like, okay, now's your big break. So she put the hat on, put on the costume, got her hat on, and out she went, and did finish the play. And of course, then we explained to the audience afterward what had happened, and that. So that was probably the scariest thing that ever happened in terms of during a performance. The worst and the most maddening happened during a show, Mutiny on Mount Olympus. And there was a young man playing one of the Greek gods who thought he was being clever and thought he was improvising and adding to the show. And he ended up saying some very inappropriate things that had to do with masturbation. Yes. And everyone just, like, they're, in the audience, like, oh, what was that? And, like, when that came out of his mouth, I was, like, in shock. And I made a beeline for the backstage to find out what was going on. Meanwhile, of course, we've got all these young, teenagers. Some of the girls were crying. It's like, the show's ruined. Mrs. Krause is going to get fired. He's ruined the show. It was quite terrible. It was a very inappropriate thing that he said, and I guess he thought he was going to get a laugh. Instead, it ended up not being very funny, and I did have to apologize to the audience at intermission. So that was no fun. The really crazy thing about that story is this. He got reprimanded the next day, certainly talking down to, and then even the principal came and talked to him about what he had said, and it's like, don't do that again. Like, do not do that again. Oh no, I'm sorry. Do you know, the very next night when we performed our second show, he did the same thing. He used a different word, but pretty much the same thing. Suffice to say, he was not in my drama performances after that. But that was probably the worst thing that's ever happened to me, and certainly all the other kids recognized it as totally inappropriate. And I had one other sort of crazy thing that happened, and this happened on the very last performance before I retired from teaching drama. So it was, in a way, I suppose it was kind of cool. But, you know, at the time it didn't. So we were doing the Western Tale, and it had been a fantastic performance. The kids did so wonderful. Everything was great. And it was just right at curtain call. And suddenly, boom, everything went black. You know, we're in a gymnasium. There's nothing. There are no lights at all. It's pitch black. The music ended, like everything. And I thought, oh no, we've blown a fuse. Because that's happened before too. I can talk about that, you know, electric problems and too many lights plugged in somewhere and you blow something, or, you know, one of the lights goes off, and like, just, there's always things, right? But this time it was pitch black, nothing. And I thought, oh no, what did we do? What did we do? Well, it turns out it was a blackout all across the whole region. So there was no power anywhere for, you know, 100 miles. So it wasn't our fault. Phew. But, you know, the kids were just about to do their curtain call. And so I don't know who started it or who decided it was a good idea, but you know, everybody has a phone now, and so people in the audience started clapping and encouraged them, come on out, or whatever, and they were holding up their phone with their lights on. So we had all these, the whole audience, you know, holding up their light, which of course wasn't much, but at least it was some, and so we could see, and those kids came out, and they took a bow, and we were able to, you know, give them the acknowledgement that they deserved after such a great performance. So it was actually kind of heartening because, you know, the audience just really came to our rescue, if you will, and by holding up their phones. And so we had all these phones shining at the stage, so there was a little bit of light, and those kids could come out and take their bow. So, you know, there's always something happening, whether it's a technical issue, whether it's something to do with the actors, whether it's even sickness or broken legs, epileptic fits, I don't know, whatever. There was never a dull moment. But I have to say, you know, 20 years of being a drama teacher was really wonderful. And I learned a lot from those kids. And one thing I think they learned as well, that, you know, drama teaches so much about perseverance, about commitment, about self-esteem, just so many benefits. So I think I better stop talking. I want to keep these short, and I seem to be getting longer each time. But I just wanted to share a few of those things. It seemed like the right thing to do after some of these past episodes talking about plays. So next time, join me again for Book Talk with Tracy. And certainly head over to my website. You can check out all of my plays. I have 9 published plays to date, maybe more coming out soon. 12 novels, a ton of nonfiction, lots to see, and I just really appreciate your feedback and your comments. So visit me at my website, tracykrause.com. And until then, I will see you again.